The inadequacy of the hermeneutical situation from which the foregoing analysis originated must be overcome. With regard to the forehaving of the whole of Dasein, which must necessarily be obtained, we must ask whether this being, as something existing, can become accessible at all in its being a whole. There seem to be important reasons that speak against the possibility of our required task, reasons that lie in the constitution of Dasein itself. Care, which forms the totality of the structural whole of Dasein, obviously contradicts a possible being whole of this being according to its ontological sense. The primary factor of care, being ahead of itself, however, means that Dasein always exists for the sake of itself. As long as it is, up until its end, it is related to its potentiality of being. Even when it still existing has nothing further ahead of it, and has settled its accounts, its being is still determined by being ahead of itself. Hopelessness, for example, does not tear Dasein away from its possibilities, but is only one of its own modes of being toward these possibilities. Even when one is without illusions and is ready for anything, the ahead of itself is there. This structural factor of care tells us unambiguously that something is always still outstanding austate in Dasein which has not yet become real as a potentiality of its being. A constant unfinished quality, Unabgeschlossenheit, thus lies in the essence of the basic constitution of Dasein. This lack of wholeness means that there is still something outstanding in one's potentiality for being. However, if Dasein exists in such a way that there is absolutely nothing more outstanding for it, it has also already thus become no longer being there. Eliminating what is outstanding in its being sane is equivalent to annihilating its being. As long as Dasein is as a being, it has never attained its wholeness. But if it does, this attainment becomes the absolute loss of being in the world. It is then never again to be experienced as a being. The reason for the impossibility of experiencing Dasein ontologically as an existing whole, and thus of defining it ontologically in its wholeness, does not lie in any imperfection of our cognitive faculty. The hindrance lies on the side of the being of this being. Whatever cannot even be as any experience that would claim to grasp Dasein, withdraws itself fundamentally from any possibility of being experienced. But is it not then a hopeless undertaking to try to discern the ontological wholeness of being of Dasein? As an essential structural factor of care, being ahead of itself cannot be eliminated. But is what we concluded from this tenable? Did we not conclude in a merely formal argumentation that it is impossible to grasp the whole of Dasein? Or did we not at bottom inadvertently posit Dasein as something objectively present ahead of which something not yet objectively present constantly moves along? Did our argumentation grasp not yet being and the ahead of itself in a genuinely existential sense? Did we speak about end and totality in a way phenomenally appropriate to Dasein? Did the expression death have a biological significance or one that is existential and ontological, or indeed was it sufficiently and securely defined at all? And have we actually exhausted all the possibilities of making Dasein accessible in its totality? We have to answer these questions before the problem of the wholeness of Dasein can be dismissed as nothing. The question of the wholeness of Dasein, both the existential question about a possible potentiality for being a whole, as well as the existential question about the constitution of being of end and wholeness, contain the task of a positive analysis of the phenomena of existence set aside up to now. In the center of these considerations, we have the task of characterizing ontologically the being toward the end of Dasein, and of achieving an existential concept of death. Our inquiry related to these topics is structured in the following way: the possibility of experiencing the death of others, and the possibility of grasping the whole of Dasein, section 47. What is outstanding, end, and wholeness, section 48. How the existential analysis of death is distinguished from other possible interpretations of this phenomenon, section 49. Preliminary sketch of the existential and ontological structure of death, section 50. Being toward death and the everydayness of Dasein, section 51. Everyday being toward death and the complete existential concept of death, section 52. The existential project of an authentic being toward death, section 53.